while we wait, I'll inspired by the incrementum talk earlier in the day, exploration in general is a really tricky thing. Frankly, and that's kind of why I like it. Absolutely everything you can imagine is going against you on all sides. And in the minds of the explorer, it seems very obvious the direction. And that's based on hundreds, if not thousands, of micro observations that you can never communicate to the average investor, or even investors who are very into the story. So it goes back to that point of a tipping point, in where what is observed as a series of coincidences or flukes quickly transitions or hits that tipping point, if you will, to a pattern. And in my young career, that is the best time to be involved, is trying to wrap your mind around those coincidences in being involved in that transition to a pattern, that tipping point. So with that, we got the right presentation. My name's Cole Evans. I'm the CEO of Enduro Metals. A bit about our team. I know we're tight for time, so I'm going to skim through it quite quickly. We're an eclectic mix of the old established, I shouldn't say, the experienced established professionals and the young and new thinkers, is how we like to look at it. A bit about myself. There's my more usual attire and the hard hat on the side of the mountain. I don't typically dress like this, but I'm an exploration geologist by trade, is how I put it. I got into the business side. I really don't know how I got into the business side, but a number of years ago with a gentleman beside me in that photo, we started an exploration services company with a $60,000 business loan out of my basement. Since that time, we've been fortunate to grow it into one of the largest service providers in Western Canada. We work at 3 producing mines in British Columbia, a number of exploration projects, revenue tens of millions of dollars in services. And that leads into an interesting transition of how we got involved in this company. It was really from that services side. But I just liked what we were seeing. This is dating back to fall 2018. Was doing technical due diligence in spring 2019. Started participating as an investor. Put $1 million in at 22.5 cents. Myself, or my company, but myself. Continued to like what I see. Invested another $500,000 at 30 cents later in 2019. And by the fall 2019, while the technical merits of the project, in my opinion, were only getting better, the corporate side of things just wasn't running the way that we wanted to see it run. So we got together with this gentleman here, and I always joke, if you got a photo sitting on that many gold bars, you can't not show the crowd. I'm sure all of you know, he needs no introduction, Rob McEwen. He's our second largest shareholder. He's also invested about $2.5 million in cash into the company over that same time frame, roughly 18 months, 2 years. And we came up with a plan. We said, hey, there's something worthwhile. It's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to be easy, but there's something worth chasing. And getting into the project, this is why. This is the most important part for me, at least. It's always the project. We have 654 square kilometers in the center, or the heart, as we call it, of BC's Golden Triangle. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this area. And how we ended up getting this project, about 1/3 of it through staking, about 2/3 through 100% option agreements, was going back and looking at data. So part of the thing that we do from that private space, as I was telling you about, was data mining, as we put it. We're fortunate in British Columbia that there's terabytes and terabytes of data that is publicly available. In fact, any exploration that goes on at a certain point in time becomes publicly available to the companies looking for it. Unfortunately, it takes a long time to process, and it sits in the dust, so to speak. So we're big into the data mining process, and we started looking at this area and said, well, geez, why, a simple way to summarize it, why does far less than 1% of exploration drilling in these 5-6 circles that I've drawn in the Golden Triangle fall within our circle, our equal area theory, as we put it? And it goes back to the principle, you're never going to find something unless you go looking for it. So with that, here is the Golden Triangle. as many of you, and for those who aren't familiar, I should cover, this is in northwestern British Columbia, arguably one of the most sought after well-endowed mineral districts in the world today. Well over 200 million ounces of known gold resources within this screen. Over the last decade, there's been, this is in Canadian dollars, over $4 billion in infrastructure investment and purchases, as well as in the last couple of years highlighted, just even a few days ago with an $18.50 share purchase of Pretium Resources by Newcrest, over $4 billion in acquisitions in this map in the last 2.5 years. Enduro Metals is that big red 650 square kilometer land package in the center of it. So great area to be, surrounded by, as I said, majors who are consolidating the area very actively. And it's not just one. You're looking at Newmont, Newcrest, Teck, other players as well, getting involved in other ways. Part of the thing that makes this area, or our project, attractive, besides, of course, for me, it's all in the geoscience, but is infrastructure developed, as I mentioned. So going back to this slide, from 1987 to 1990, when the large majority of the work was done here, you had to access this area through Alaska. Very difficult to get to, 75 kilometers from the nearest road, hundreds of kilometers from the nearest power line. Today, we have road access that now touches both the north and southern end of the property, including a hydroelectric power facility that literally sits on the southern end of our property. That the tree line cut that you can see in the background is our property boundary. So road, and that's the intake to one of the power plants sitting right on our doorstep. Immensely changes the mineral economics of the area for obvious reasons. Getting into the geoscience side, always my favorite side, but I don't know if we got time to get into it too much. While we look at it as one property, it's really four. It's four geological systems that vary in metal, or I should say deposit type and metal endowment. As you see in the Golden Triangle, there's porphyries, there's VMS deposits, there's epithermal deposits, there's all kinds. And that's based on the regional geology that goes right really around the entire Ring of Fire. This is the most important point to take, if anything, from this presentation, because I know I won't get through it all, is the results we just put out a few weeks ago. This is a brand new discovery hole at our area called Burgundy Ridge. No company has ever drilled this area before except for us. The first drill holes were in 2019, our first pass program, as we call it. Unfortunately, in 2020, we didn't, with COVID and a number of extenuating circumstances, we didn't get to drill up here. But we did in 2021. This is our first hole from the Burgundy Ridge area in 2021. 331 meters overall mineralized interval of 0.71 copper equivalent, or the interval I like the most, 146 meters of 1% copper equivalent. Let's look at the breakdown of what, I'm going to cut back to that one, but I just want to show you the table, the breakdown of what that is. You can look at, if I'm making any comparisons to other projects, it's because I really like them. If you look at that overall mineralized interval, that's virtually identical. Copper gold grades, the indicated resource at Saddle, that was recently purchased by Newmont earlier this year for over 400 million US. And then keep going down into the intervals, however you want to break them down, either on par to grades or higher grades than Red Chris, Galore Creek, Kerr. Those what I would consider to be the three most significant porphyry deposits in the area by copper and gold perspective. Again, all of these multi-billion-dollar projects owned by multi-billion-dollar miners and or explorers. Going back, this is a little bit of how we found it. This is an important slide. A lot of people think that ice is and don't get me wrong, ice is a challenge when you're in the Golden Triangle, but they think, oh, you can't, it's difficult to explore under and target and things like that. It is, but hopefully this is a proof of concept to people that, in fact, that interval we were just talking about is completely covered. We're able to hit blind targets, and that's based on a different technology that we use, mainly, alter your standard forms of geochemistry and geophysics, but also a technology we use quite heavily called hyperspectroscopy. The important thing to also take from that is this is our plan view map of that area. In the purple star is where we drilled. From a geochemical, geophysical perspective, as you can see, we're just on the edges of the system, or of what we believe the system is. That's over 3 kilometers in strike length in that magnetic feature. That's what we believe is the source batholith that's driving this mineralization. and it is the only hole to actually penetrate. Even it's still relatively shallow. 445 meters is where the hole ends. Most porphyry systems you're not getting into until about 400, 500 meters today of where they're drilling. We haven't even got down to that depth yet, and we're already hitting some pretty significant mineralization in our opinion. And another thing I'll bring up that I feel is lost on those who, again, aren't fortunate in the sense like myself of I eat and breathe this, is observing the geochemistry. And look at those silver and zinc numbers. And why I put those in there is for people to see, you're not going to get silver and zinc in the center of a porphyry system. That's still a transitory environment. You're still cool. Think of copper as hot, zinc is cold, relatively speaking. And we use them in geochemistry to vector. The point being is we're still not in the center of our system. We still think we're quite a ways away. And if we're seeing these kind of grades where we sit today, what are the grades going to look like when we're in the center of our system, which happens to be centered in between the two most important porphyry camps in British Columbia, in the KSM Treaty Creek camp and Galore Creek. Of course, arc parallel. So if you believe in the theory of repetition, it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it flies like a duck, and it's in the center of the swamp with the rest of the ducks. So you can be the judge of how that is. Real quickly, we're short for time. More results that we have. We're last minute, okay. This is a bit on the gold. We're gonna have, so short-term catalyst, what's going on? We still got a lot more drill results to come. Like everyone, we're plagued with the same problems. I'm not even gonna try and predict when all of them are gonna be. We drilled about 20 holes this year, so it's gonna be in the coming weeks and months. Some of it following up on this area I'm gonna have to skip through all this that we worked on in 2020. There's a bit of a highlight, 8.85 meters, 31 grams gold, 1% copper. This is our near-term focus, looking at the project as a two-stage approach. You have near-surface high-grade gold that is close to your power and infrastructure that eventually could, in theory, be developed sooner, and that is your source of either cash from a sale or cash in the form of a joint venture for a miner who would come in and build it as a source of non-dilutive long-term cash flow to go and chase the porphyry, which we believe will create the most value for all of our shareholders in a sellout. We are not here to become a miner. We are here to discover it, build it to a certain size, and sell it to someone who will then take it to the next level. With that, I think I'm over my time. Let's cover this last slide for a bit. We're at approximately 25 cents, or roughly a 55 million market cap, depending on the day. 206 million shares out. We never rolled back when we took over the company. That was something that was important to us for some of the existing shareholders. We have 17 million dollars Canadian in warrants coming up at the end of February this year. About 1.6 million in the till, another million roughly in tax. Receivables to come back into the company over the next little while, and we'll be finishing our 100% option agreement on the entire project by the end of February of 2022 in the next few months. If you bought on when I look at it, Enduro's existed for essentially 2 years. If you bought today, 2 years ago, you're up 136%. Again, we're long-term thinkers. Most of that coming last year, of course, when gold was doing better, but even this year, still up 16% year over year. If you were to compare to the index GDXJ at roughly negative 11%, you've outperformed the market still by a significant margin. So there we go. With that.
Thank you very much. You can put it in. And maybe one question. We will see regularly the results in the next weeks and months.
Yeah, again, I'm not gonna, I can't, I wish my crystal ball worked a little better in the exact time frame, but yeah, weeks and months. Like we still got quite a bit of drilling to come through.
Okay. Thank you very much. Cole is here if you're interested in a one-to-one and have more questions.